Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been in a public place minding your own business and then someone does something so awkward, so disruptive you think, do they not see the rest of us here? Public spaces are shared spaces, and how we behave in them says more about us than we think. Today, we're going to get real about 9 things you should never do in public, not to shame, but to raise the bar. Because when we know better, we show up better. You know, one of the most powerful things about being in public isn't what we say, it's what we don't say. Respect is one of those things that doesn't need to be shouted, doesn't need a sign, doesn't even need a thank you. It just shows up quietly, consistently, and the way it shows up most through our awareness of others. When you're in a shared space, whether it's a coffee shop, a bus stop, a waiting room, at the doctor's office, you're in a social contract. You're saying, I'm not the only one here. My presence affects other people. And the people around you are saying the same thing. Even if they don't realize it, that's respect. That unspoken mutual understanding that, hey, this isn't just my world. I'm sharing this moment with others. But here's the thing. So many of us forget that, or worse, we remember it and ignore it. We get into public spaces and act like we're the only one who matters. We talk over people. We cut in lines. We ignore personal space. Some folks treat strangers like background extras in the movie of their life. And you know what? Nobody wants to be treated like an extra. We all want to feel seen, heard, acknowledged. Even just a nod, a step to the side to make space, a door held open. Those are the small gestures that make a big difference. Think about how often you see someone talking so loud on the phone, you can't concentrate on your own thoughts, or playing videos without headphones like the rest of the world needs to hear their favorite YouTuber. You can tell when someone's not aware of their volume, their space, their presence, and it instantly changes the mood. It drains the energy out of a room. It makes people uncomfortable. Why? Because the unspoken message is, I matter more than you. And that's the opposite of respect. Respect says, I see you. I don't need to know you, but I honor your space. It's not about walking on eggshells or being overly formal. It's just about presence. Being present enough to notice that your bag is blocking a seat someone might need, that you're standing too close in line, that you're interrupting a quiet space with a loud conversation. It's those tiny decisions that add up to something bigger. Let me give you a quick example. I was at the airport not long ago, waiting at a gate, and I noticed this woman sitting next to an outlet. She had 3 devices plugged in: phone, tablet, and laptop, and people around her were clearly looking for a spot to charge their stuff. She saw them, but didn't move, didn't offer, didn't even look up. That might not seem like a big deal, but that small moment, it told everyone around her exactly how she sees the world. Said, my convenience matters more than your need. And here's what's real. People remember that, not just about hurt, but about what it feels like when someone refuses to make room for others. And that feeling lingers. Now flip it. Think about the times when someone's gone out of their way to make room for you, gave you the last seat on the train, turned down their music, offered help without being asked. That stuff hits different, not because it's flashy or dramatic, but because it's rare, because it's a choice. And every time we make that choice, we're building something bigger than just a polite moment. We're saying this space, it belongs to all of us, and I'm going to act like it. That's the kind of energy that spreads, that models, that sets the tone in rooms, in streets, in stores, everywhere we go. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be aware. And that awareness, that's where respect, not in grand speeches or big gestures, but in the simple decision to recognize the people around you, even the ones you'll never see again. Because in public, your presence is always speaking. Even when you're silent, we live in a world where privacy is becoming more and more of a luxury. Between social media, reality TV, and nonstop access to each other, it's easy to forget that not everything needs to be public. But there's a difference between sharing your life and spilling it into spaces where it doesn't belong. There are just some things, some moments that need to stay behind closed doors. You've probably seen it. Someone having a full-blown argument on speakerphone in the middle of a coffee shop. You're just there trying to enjoy your latte, maybe get a little work done. And now you're suddenly front row to someone else's family drama. or someone at the grocery store walking the aisles, venting to a friend over FaceTime on full volume like the frozen food section is their personal podcast studio. It's uncomfortable not just because of what they're saying, but because you didn't ask to be part of that moment. You got pulled into it without permission. That's the issue. Public space doesn't mean personal space disappears. We all still deserve to exist in peace. The problem isn't that people have lives. They should. Life is messy, stressful, complicated. The problem is when people forget to put boundaries around those private moments and just let them spill into public like everyone's supposed to absorb it. I was on a train once and a guy across from me was having a loud breakup call. Everything from cheating, accusations, to tears, to the I gave you my best year speech. And I remember looking around and realizing everyone on that train was now involved in a moment that should have happened somewhere private. It wasn't just awkward, it felt invasive. We were all trapped in it, and not one of us signed up for that. Now I get it. Emotions don't wait for the perfect moment. Sometimes the phone rings and it's not a conversation you can put off. But that's where self-awareness comes in. That's where you either step outside, lower your voice, or send a message saying, hey, can I call you back when I have some privacy? That one small choice respects both your personal life and the people around you. Oversharing isn't just about volume either. It's also about content. You ever been in line and someone next to you is talking just loud enough for you to hear exactly what medical condition they're dealing with, or how terrible their boss is, or what their cousin did at the wedding? Now, it's not just a conversation, it's a performance. But the thing is, no one's clapping, because here's the truth. Not everyone wants to be part of your story. Not everyone wants to hear your play-by-play. And when we overshare in public, it forces people into a role they didn't audition for. It's not fair to them, and it's honestly not fair to you. Because when everything becomes public, nothing feels sacred anymore. There's strength in knowing when to keep something for yourself. And it's not about shame. It's not about pretending life is always neat or polished. It's about knowing that some things deserve protection. You'll never wish you'd aired more of your personal life to strangers in a waiting room. But I might wish you'd paused, taken a breath, and waited for the right moment. You might wish you'd kept something just for you, just between you and someone you trust. Because what's personal should stay personal. And public space isn't your diary. There's a moment we've all seen, maybe we've even been part of it, when someone finishes a meal at a food court, gets up from the table, and just walks away. Tray still there. Napkins, spilled drink, food scraps left behind like it's someone else's job to deal with. And maybe it is someone's job to clean the area eventually. Sure, but that's not the point. The point is that someone looked at a shared space and decided, not my problems. That attitude, that's where public discomfort starts. Because when people stop caring for shared spaces, those spaces stop feeling safe and instead start feeling like no one's home, like no one's responsible. And when no one feels responsible, we all suffer. That leftover trash isn't just a mess. That message doesn't stay on the table. It spreads. It shapes how we feel in a space and how we treat it going forward. Cleaning up after yourself isn't about being perfect. It's not about having a spotless car or a surgically clean table. It's about showing respect, not just to the people who come after you, but to the space itself. It's about saying, I was here and I made sure it stayed good for the next person. You wreck your weights, not because someone's watching you, but because someone else is coming right after you. It shifts the culture of it. A messy environment tells people it's okay to care less. That's how we lose respect for our surroundings slowly. One careless moment at a time. And this isn't about guilt. This is about ownership. When you take a few seconds to throw your trash away, push your chair back in, or return your cart, what you're really saying is, I take care of what I touch. That's not just considerate. That's powerful. It shows up in how we lead, how we parent, how we treat strangers. It tells the world that you don't need applause to do what's right. You just do it. Because let's be honest, there's no reward for wiping down a counter or picking up after yourself in public. No one's handing out trophies for returning your shopping cart. But that's the point. Because even the smallest act of care can shift the atmosphere. And the more people see it, The more it spreads, the more it becomes normal, the more it feels like this is just how we do things around here. You're not just leaving a place, you're leaving a footprint, and people will step into whatever you leave behind. So why not make it something better, something cleaner, kinder, more thoughtful? Because shared spaces only work when we treat them like they're worth sharing. We all have rough days. It's part of being human. You spill coffee on yourself before an important meeting. You sit in traffic for an hour only to miss your appointment. Your boss emails you something petty at 4:59 p.m. Or maybe it's not just one thing. Maybe it's 5 little things that stack up until your patience is paper thin. I get it. Life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. But here's the truth. Most of us don't want to hear your mood is your responsibility, not the world's, when we carry our stress, our anger, our frustration out into public and unload it onto others. We turn our personal storm into someone else's problem. And most of the time that someone else is a complete stranger, someone who had nothing to do with the thing that set us off. But now they're catching the fallout, a snappy tone with a cashier, a passive-aggressive comment to the person next to us in line. An eye roll or sigh just loud enough for people around us to hear. We justify it by saying, I'm just having a bad day, us. But that doesn't make it okay. And behind all of that is one silent message, but my emotions matter more than your dignity. But here's the part that gets overlooked. When we lash out in public, we don't feel better afterward. It might feel good in the moment. Sure, that flash of release, that little hit of control when everything else feels chaotic, but it doesn't fix what hurt us. It doesn't bring clarity or peace. All it does is add another layer of regret. Another moment we wish we'd handled better. Another stranger who now remembers us for all the wrong reasons. The real strength isn't in letting your frustration out on others. It's in holding the line. It's in pausing long enough to say this isn't their fault and they don't deserve my worst. That pause, that's maturity. That's character. And most importantly, that's how we avoid becoming the very thing we're upset about. Now, I'm not saying you have to fake a smile when you're hurting. You don't have to pretend everything's fine when it's not. You just have to recognize the difference between feeling something and making others feel it too. Because when we're in public, we carry influence whether we mean to or not. People watch how we handle pressure. They watch how we respond when things go sideways. Not confidence, not charisma, not the ability to take up space. Just plain simple awareness. Awareness of how we're moving, how we're speaking, how we're affecting the people around us. It sounds small, but it's not. It's a superpower. Because when you're aware, you don't need someone to call you out. You don't need a sign to tell you to be quiet or step aside. You just know. We've all been in a situation where someone's completely unaware of the space they're taking up. Maybe they're blocking an aisle in the grocery store while scrolling on their phone. Maybe they're walking in a group shoulder to shoulder on a narrow sidewalk, not leaving any room for others to pass. Self-awareness isn't about being self-conscious. Always. Even in the smallest ways. It shows up in things like scent. You ever been in an elevator and someone walks in wearing enough cologne to knock out a horse? Or they've just come from the gym and haven't changed shirts, and suddenly the whole space feels 10 times more uncomfortable. That's awareness, or the lack of it. Most people don't mean to make others uncomfortable. They just haven't paused long enough to ask, fine, how might this affect someone else? Chic also shows up with sound. We don't always notice when our earbuds are leaking music, loud enough for the next row to hear, or when we're talking on the phone in a quiet place and the echo of our voice fills the room. We assume that because it feels normal to us, it must be fine for everyone else. But awareness challenges that. It makes you step outside of your own experience for a second and see the moment through someone else's lens. And the truth is, it's hard to do because self-awareness takes humility. It takes the willingness to accept that you're not the main character all the time. Not because they weren't bothered, but because they were doing that thing we all do, hoping someone else will address it. Meanwhile, the guy had no clue, not because he was mean, just unaware, and that one moment turned a peaceful space into a tense one for everyone else. But the flip side of that is powerful too. Think about the last time you saw someone go out of their way to adjust, to step aside and make space, to lower their voice, to catch themselves before interrupting. That kind of awareness doesn't just keep things polite. It creates ease. It tells the people around you, yes, I see you. You're not invisible. And that feeling that changes a space. The world doesn't need more people who can command attention. It needs more people who can read the room, who can recognize when they're too loud, too close, too much, and adjust, not because they were told to, but because they chose to. Not out of shame, but out of care. Because awareness isn't weakness. It's respect in motion. So here's the truth. Public spaces aren't just physical places. They're shared experiences. Every time we step outside, we become part of a bigger story. And how we show up in that story matters. Whether it's choosing respect without needing credit, keeping our personal mess from becoming someone else's problem, cleaning up what we touch, managing our mood before it spills over, or simply being aware enough to read the room. These small, quiet decisions build something powerful. They build trust. They build peace. They build environments where people feel seen, safe, and respected, because public behavior isn't about perfection. It's about consideration. You don't need to do everything right. You just need to be intentional. So the next time you're out in the world, at the store, on a train, in a waiting room, pause for a second, look around, remember you're not alone in that space. And when you act like it, you help make the space better for everyone. In it, that's what showing up well looks like.